Block 1. They said it was a business decision, but the moment I saw the footage, I knew it was personal. My name is Riley, and until 6 months ago, I thought I understood the rules of the corporate world. Show up early, stay late, be sharp, be reliable. Don't make waves unless you're told to. I played the game. God, I mastered the game. At 29, I was a junior manager at one of the fastest-growing tech firms on the East Coast, Cortex Sync. I was making more money than I'd ever dreamed of, had a view from my desk that caught the sunrise every morning, and was finally on the list for emerging leaders, which in corporate language means we're watching you for a possible promotion, but don't mess it up. But more than any of that, I had Harper, my best friend. Not just work friend, real friend. We met in onboarding 3 years ago. She wore sneakers with her suit, brought her own coffee in a chipped mug that said, "World's okayest human," and muttered sarcastic commentary during team meetings that made me nearly choke on my protein bars. She was smarter than me, and she didn't care about office politics, which somehow made her even better at surviving them. When I got promoted to junior manager, she was the first person I told. She jumped up, hugged me so hard I nearly fell over, and said, "You're gonna change this place. Just promise me you won't become one of them." I laughed, swore I wouldn't, and I meant it. Until the day they called me into that glass-walled office. "Riley," said Derek, my director. "All teeth, no soul. We need to make a quick cut. Performance realignment. We're hoping to do it quietly. You'll handle it." I blinked. "Who?" He slid a folder across the table. "Harper Lane." At first, I thought it was a mistake. She had the best KPIs on our floor. Clients loved her. She stayed late on Fridays without being asked. "She's incredible," I said. "Why?" "Let's just say," Derek said, leaning back, "there've been concerns." I pressed. He deflected. "This is what leadership looks like, Riley. Hard calls, no favorites." I didn't sleep that night. I reread every report, looked at every email, tried to find any reason this could be justified. Nothing. But the pressure was real. They said if I couldn't deliver the cut, they'd revisit my suitability for advancement. So I did it. I called Harper into the same glass office, and I fired my best friend. Block 2. Guilt is loud, but suspicion is louder. The moment Harper left the room, something in me fractured. She didn't cry, didn't yell. She just stared at me. Not with anger, but with the kind of quiet betrayal that rearranges your insides. "You're better than this," she whispered. And then she walked out. That sentence haunted me. Every step I took back to my desk, every sip of bad coffee that burned my throat, every fake smile I gave to the vultures already circling for her desk, all of it was drowned out by her voice echoing in my head. "You're better than this." But was I? The next day, I opened her final performance log again. I read it line by line. It was filled with vague language. Inconsistencies noted. Some internal friction. Perceived alignment issues. Nothing solid. Nothing provable. It read like a smear campaign written by someone smart enough to leave no fingerprints. And then I remembered something odd. Harper once told me she'd submitted a confidential ethics complaint about someone in our department. She didn't say who, didn't give details, just mentioned it over lunch one day when she looked especially exhausted. At the time, I didn't ask more, but now it mattered. I started digging. Quietly. I searched the company database for keywords she used. One memo popped up, half redacted, but it was enough to get a name. Director Derek Sloan. My boss, the one who told me to fire her. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. Because it was clear now, Harper hadn't been underperforming. She'd been targeted, and I'd been used to make it clean. No scandal, no blowback, just one friend betraying another. Corporate camouflage. I felt sick, But more than that, I felt fire. And I wasn't going to let this be the last chapter. Not without flipping the whole script first. Block 3. I once believed the system would protect the honest, but then I watched it reward the predators. I spent the next few days operating in stealth mode, still smiling in meetings, still responding to emails, still saying circling back and per my last message like a good corporate soldier. But under the surface, I was building a file. I dug through old project folders, cross-referenced Derek's calendar logs with Harper's, checked metadata on internal memos, and slowly, patterns started to emerge. Meetings Harper wasn't invited to, but should have been. Documents where her name was removed from final credits. Clients she landed who were later reassigned under Derek's name. It was coordinated and subtle, but I knew how to read between the lines. I also found an archived chat from 6 months ago, a thread between Harper and HR, where she quietly raised concerns about budget discrepancies on Derek S. accounts. She didn't accuse him outright. She just asked, who authorized the duplicate billing? No response. The thread ended 2 hours later. The vague alignment issues language began showing up in her performance reviews. The picture was becoming clear. Harper hadn't just filed a complaint. She had found something real. And Derek? He moved fast to discredit her, not through confrontation, through bureaucracy, through weaponized ambiguity. And I had helped, unwittingly. But I had been the face of her downfall. I felt it in my chest like a bruise that wouldn't fade. One night, I stayed late at the office, past 9 p.m. The cleaning crew was already working. I walked past Derek's empty office, heart pounding. His door was ajar. I checked the hallway. Empty. Slipped inside. His desk was immaculate, almost too clean, except for one drawer, locked. But I noticed a USB drive taped underneath the desk, right at the edge. Like he was hiding it in plain sight. I pocketed it, walked out fast. No one saw me. At home, I plugged it into an air-gapped laptop. And what I found? Proof. Invoices, emails, spreadsheets, all pointing to misappropriated funds, false consulting claims, and one very clear attempt to bury Harper's internal audit. I stared at the screen, breath caught in my throat, and I whispered, he buried her to protect himself. But what Derek didn't know is that now I had a shovel. Block 4. This wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about making sure the people who broke it never got to build again. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just sat on my couch, laptop open, screen glowing in the dark like a spotlight over every sin Derek thought he'd buried. The numbers were damning. Consulting fees routed to fake vendors, internal expense reports edited after approvals, client deliverables marked completed with no trace of work ever submitted. Harper had flagged it. She saw it first, and instead of being thanked, she was erased. I knew what I had to do, but I also knew I couldn't do it alone. So I called the only person who deserved to know everything, Harper. She didn't answer the first time, or the second, but on the third call, she picked up. Riley? Her voice was quiet, guarded, rightfully so. I need to see you, I said. It's not about me. It's about him. And I found something. Silence. Then, tomorrow, 8 a.m., Dinah's Diner. No crowds. She hung up. I showed up early. She was already there. Same chipped coffee mug. Same fierce eyes. But different now. Worn in places I hadn't seen before. I slid the USB across the table. Didn't say a word. She plugged it into her tablet and began scrolling. Her eyes widened. Hands trembled slightly. These are my notes, she whispered. He altered them, stripped my ID from the audit trail. I know, I said. And I'm sorry. I helped them push you out. She looked up. You were following orders. That's not an excuse. She nodded slowly, closed the laptop. We take it to compliance? No, I said. We go bigger. That night, we sent a secure copy of the files to a journalist Harper trusted, someone who had once exposed internal corruption at a different firm. We used aliases, protected IPs, no traceable names, but the evidence was clear. 2 days later, I received a message. Story drops Friday. Buckle up. And buckle up I did. Because what happened next, no one could have predicted. Block 5. They always say sunlight is the best disinfectant. Turns out, it also burns. The article dropped at 6:47 a.m. Front page of the business section on a mid-tier investigative site. Not national, not small. Big enough to ripple. Inside Cortex Sync. Fabricated audits, misappropriated funds, and the silencing of a whistleblower. I sat at my kitchen table, refreshing the article over and over as the view count climbed. Emails started flying before 9 a.m. Not to me, not yet, but to the entire executive tier. You could feel the panic pulsing through the office like electricity through copper. Derek didn't come in that day. Neither did 2 senior analysts, both listed in the investigation. By noon, there was a company-wide all-hands meeting scheduled urgently. That was corporate code for, we're bleeding, and the board smells it. In the meantime, messages started coming in from colleagues. You seeing this? Is this real? Was Harper the whistleblower? And finally, from my mentor, someone high enough up to know the internal rot had been festering. Be careful. But also, thank you. At 2:15 p.m., Harper texted me a single sentence. They've requested a formal meeting with me. They're lawyers. She didn't ask for advice. She didn't need to. Harper had always been brave. I was just catching up. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up. This is Jenna Morales, VP of Internal Affairs. We'd like to speak with you, off the record, about your role in recent disclosures. My stomach flipped. Am I in trouble? A pause. Then, that depends. Are you ready to talk about what you knew? And when? I exhaled. Yes, I am. The next morning, I sat in a stark conference room across from 2 company lawyers, an HR rep, and Jenna. I told the truth. Every uncomfortable part. How I fired Harper. How I found the USB. How I worked with her to uncover the trail. They asked if I leaked the files. I said, I protected someone who did. After the system failed her. They didn't thank me. Didn't condemn me either. Just scribbled notes, exchanged glances, and ended the meeting with a neutral. We'll be in touch. I walked out, head high. Not because I knew what would happen, but because for the first time in months I wasn't afraid of what could. Block 6. He lost everything overnight, but what I gained couldn't be measured in money or promotions. By Friday, Derek's name was scrubbed from the company website. No press release, no goodbye email, just gone. The office buzzed with whispered theories. Some said he resigned, others said he was quietly let go. But Harper and I knew better. The board had no choice. The evidence was irrefutable. The backlash was visible. Investors were pulling, clients were calling, HR was panicking. And suddenly, Harper, the woman they'd erased, was now the name everyone was afraid to ignore. They offered her a settlement, a big one. She didn't take it. Instead, she demanded a public statement of correction. She wanted her record cleared, her termination retracted, her integrity restored, and she got it. A company-wide email arrived that Monday at 11:04 a.m. We regret to inform you that Ms. Harper Lane's departure was mishandled due to incomplete internal processes. Her contributions were significant, and her integrity has never been in question. Corporates speak for, we fecked up, and now the world knows it. My inbox exploded. Most messages were short. You were right. Now it makes sense. We owe Harper, and you, an apology. One person, though, said something that stuck. Thank you for doing what most of us were too scared to. But all that vindication came with a price. A day later, Jenna from Internal Affairs called me again. We've concluded our inquiry. You're not under disciplinary review. That's good, I said. But, she added, your name's now attached to a very public whistleblower story. Advancement might be slow, internally. Translation? You're not fired, but you're done here. I wasn't angry. I was clear. Because the truth is, I didn't want to rise inside this system anymore. I wanted to burn the template and build a new one. So I handed in my resignation that Friday. 2 weeks' notice. Graceful. Professional. No drama. When Derek was escorted out, he kept his head down. When I walked out, I stood tall. The whole floor clapped. Not like a hero, like someone who finally got free. Block 7. I left the corporate tower thinking I'd be starting from zero. I didn't realize I was finally starting from me. The Monday after I left Cortex Sync, I woke up with no alarm for the first time in years. No unread emails, no Monday stand-up, no forced enthusiasm in Slack threads titled, Happy Hustle. Just me, coffee, silence. And for the first time, it felt good. A week later, I got a call from the Glass House Collective, a small but growing nonprofit that supports whistleblowers and ethical reform in corporate spaces. They'd read the article, heard whispers about me, and wanted to talk. I thought it would be an informal chat. It turned into a job offer, not a junior role. Director of Culture Accountability, me, the woman who was once afraid to challenge authority, now being invited to help reimagine what accountability could look like from the inside. I asked Harper what she thought. She smiled and said, "Feels like full circle. Just don't forget the mug when you start." I laughed. I hadn't forgotten her chipped mug. In fact, it was now on my desk at home, holding pens like a quiet totem. The new job was unlike anything I'd done before. No suits, no jargon. Just work that felt human. We reviewed cases like mine, built anonymous channels, held workshops for companies really trying, to change. And one day, I was invited to speak at a conference. Corporate Betrayal and the Cost of Silence. I stood on stage, heart steady, told my story. Didn't name names, didn't need to, because the room wasn't looking for drama. They were looking for truth. And when I was done, someone in the audience stood up and said, "I'm still at a place like the one you left, but now, I know there's a door, and I think I'm ready to walk through it." That was the moment, the one I'd been waiting for. Because this was the real promotion. Not a new title, but a new legacy. Block 8. We used to whisper in conference rooms. Now they're quoting us on stage. It had been 6 months. 6 months since I walked out of Cortex Sync. 6 months since Harper got her name back. 6 months since everything burned to the ground, and we realized we could build something better with the ashes. We stayed in touch, of course, but life pulled us in different directions. She launched her own consultancy, Audits with Integrity. Small team, high demand. Companies who actually wanted accountability called her because they trusted her. Meanwhile, I was knee-deep in programming initiatives at Glasshouse, building internal audit frameworks, helping whistleblowers file anonymously, advising startups on ethical design from day one. We were working the same war, from different fronts. Then, one day, our circles overlapped again. I was asked to curate a panel for an upcoming Leadership and Ethics Summit. Theme: When the system breaks you, build a new one. I asked Harper if she'd be on it. She didn't even hesitate. Only if you moderate. We met in the green room before the event. She looked the same, calm, collected, fierce. But something had changed. We both had a quiet confidence now. Not performance, not posture. Just truth. When we walked out onto that stage, the applause wasn't for our pain. It was for our courage. We told our story in full. Together. How we were friends. How we were separated by fear and hierarchy. How we reunited through justice. Harper said something I'll never forget. I wasn't just fired. I was framed as difficult. And Riley, she didn't just help expose the truth. She showed me that forgiveness isn't a weakness. It's strategy. I teared up. So did half the room. After the panel, a young woman approached us, trembling hands, wide eyes. "I'm in the same position now," she whispered. "My best friend's about to fire me because her boss told her to. I want to believe it's not the end." Harper put a hand on her shoulder. "It's not. It's just a plot twist." Block 9. Closure doesn't come with applause. It comes when the story no longer lives in your chest like a bruise. The old Cortex Inc. building was slated for renovation. A sleek new co-working space was taking over. New paint, new walls, new name. The company had been bought out after the scandal, rebranded, restructured, sanitized. I wasn't sentimental about the building. Not really. But something inside me wanted to see it one last time. Not to mourn it, to outgrow it. So I went. Saturday morning. Empty parking lot. Chain link fence already halfway around the perimeter. I stood on the sidewalk across the street, coffee in hand, watching as workers hauled out boxes, stripped the signage, gutted the lobby. And then I saw it, tucked in the corner of a pile by the dumpster. Harper's chair, the one with the crooked wheel she always joked about. The one she refused to replace because, if the chair survives, so will I. It was battered now, scratched, discarded like everything else from that version of the company. I crossed the street, asked a worker if I could keep it. He shrugged. "Trash is trash. Take whatever you want." So I took it, rolled it awkwardly across the street, loaded it into the back of my car, drove it home. Now it sits in my writing corner, next to a sunlit window. The wheel still sticks a little. The armrest still creaks. But to me, it's not broken. It's a survivor, like Harper, like me. Every time I sit in it, I remember that sometimes what's discarded by one system becomes sacred in another. Block 10. I didn't climb the ladder. I burned it and built a bridge instead. It's been a year. One full orbit since the day I slid that USB into my laptop and discovered everything. Since the day I fired my best friend. Since the day I took it back. With truth. My life now? Smaller in some ways. No more fancy offices. No title on the door. No corporate card. But also, no Sunday dread. No silent swallowing of injustice. No pretending someone else's success mattered more than my integrity. I live in a little apartment now. Plants in every window. Used books stacked on the floor. Harper drops by twice a month. We make pancakes and laugh about things that used to break us. I spend my days writing, guides for whistleblowers, op-eds about ethical work culture, and a manuscript, tentatively titled, "The Clean Exit: How to Leave a Dirty System Without Losing Yourself." It's not about revenge. It's about survival, reclamation, power, the quiet kind. Sometimes I'm invited to speak at events. One time, a young intern came up to me afterward and said, "You made me feel like telling the truth isn't just brave, it's strategic." I smiled. Because that's it. That's the whole point. Truth isn't just noble, it's tactical. It's the thing they fear most in broken systems, not chaos, but clarity. And I'll spend the rest of my life giving it to anyone brave enough to listen. Because I may have lost a job, but I found something better, my voice, and I'm never handing it over again.